when we taking on projects and taking on campaigns, we said that there's no one single distribution channel anymore, and there's no one single playbook.
There's no central way for you to handle distribution anymore, because earlier what used to happen was that all you had to do was say drop your project on a Kaito, and that would be enough, right? Now you cannot do that anymore.
What are some of those distribution channels that you think are pivotal right now in this space now?
There's no single playbook now. Every time I sit down at my desk and I have to craft a campaign, my number one priority is that how do I ensure that I am able to. So as a marketer who's sitting with, say, good protocols and good project, change is the only constant, right? Because if you wanted your project to do its TG properly, if you wanted it to be all over the timeline, you had to have either a
Welcome to another episode of Web3 Growth Marketing. And today we're going to be talking with or having a conversation with Rishab. Rishab is an amazing friend, brother. Fun fact, we work together. We've been working together side by side for almost 1 year now, right? I think over a year now at Surgeons.
1 year.
Yeah, 1.5 year. He's a marketing manager at Surgeons Labs. By the way, Surgeons Labs is one of the leading go-to-market 360 agency, as recruiting will call it. And Rishab has worked on multiple projects across different sectors, DeFi, non-DeFi, cloud technology, Zima crypto, NFTs. Rishab is an interesting person, someone I like to have conversation with at work, bounce lots of crazy ideas back and forth each other in the DMs.
Yes, sir.
This episode today, we are looking to actually talk about something very interesting: distribution, community, and growth in Web3. The most interesting thing is when I was planning this episode, I was like, who's one of the most fun person to actually have this kind of conversation with? Once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Rishab. How are you doing?
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much, Optimus. And I think it's massively interesting for both of us and the audience as well to listen to our conversation. And I make sure that I don't waste too much of your time and as much value as I possibly can.
Yeah. Awesome. Incredible. So we get right into it, to be honest. So I was thinking, what's going to be the first question I'm going to ask Rishab on this podcast? And it's something that I found recently while scrolling on X. And I was like, I was definitely going to ask you that in the last 12 to 18 months. And the reason why this is important is because if you agree with me, the Web3 space moves really, really fast, right?
Extremely
Things are changing very quickly. Yeah. At one point, we had InfoFi so big, one tweet after InfoFi so small. And then you see lots of market reactions and brand reactions and people pivoting and coming up with new solutions. And that literally creates a whole new opportunity, a whole new plan, a whole new strategy, a whole new execution, particularly in marketing as well. And so when we look at in the last 12 to 18 months, I think that time frame has enough drama in the space, right? For us to actually talk about. And I would love to know what's the one belief about Web3 marketing that you have really thought to be true. You maybe defended it publicly after what's happened in the last 12 to 18 months and the changes and the growth you've had to go through in your career. You are now starting to rethink that opinion that you have previously regarding Web3 marketing. What's that one key belief?
I would like to probably say that there's no one key belief, but what I have realized Web3 marketing, change is the only constant, right? Because if you go back in, say, the months of February or March 2025, you had to have an InfoFi strategy. You had to ensure that if you wanted your project to do its TG properly, if you wanted it to be all over the timeline, you had to have either a Kaito or a cookie tree, right? But fast forward 8 months, that entire distribution channel is now non-existent. People who had allocated 500, 600K of their budgets just for this particular avenue, they have to now what the hell do I do to get the kind of distribution which these platforms were, helping us drive to our product. And now I think it's in a way good or a bad thing as well that there's no central way for you to handle distribution anymore, because earlier what used to happen was that all you had to do was say drop your project on a Kaito, do some and that would be enough, right? Because then a lot of people will start talking about your project because they of course have their own tokens for TGE. But now you cannot
Yeah.
do that anymore. You have to ensure that,
Unfortunately.
I think it's for space, right? Because earlier I feel that there was a very little emphasis on the kind or the quality of the product or protocol, because if there was a flashy reward, everyone wanted to talk about it, even if the bottom layer of the project was like complete crap, and even if there was no utility to it, people still were talking about it because they wanted to get the tokens for later on to redeem at TGE and earn a quick buck off of it. But that's
Uh,
not true. It's a net positive for the space, because it's difficult for bad actors and for projects with little or no utility to gain the kind of mindshare that they could have gained using tools like InfoFi. So, as a marketer who's sitting with, say, good protocols and good projects right now, they have a good opportunity to ensure that you don't get lost in the sea of InfoFi spam that used to be the problem earlier. Because earlier, if you were a marketer, it was very difficult to gain organic traction, at least especially in the case
yeah.
of, and now that is the only way you can trend, or that is the only way you can capture the attention of the users. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
net positive. I feel that if you're a
True.
marketer in
True.
2020 and you want to market your product, your number one tool should be figuring out a unique way of distribution. Because if you can do that for one project, you can do for 10 projects. And there's no single playbook now, right? Because earlier the playbook
Yeah.
was info. That's not
True.
true anymore. That's not true anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you're so correct because I felt InfoFi because it allowed you to a huge number of creators, macro creators who had their own certain level of influence relatively. Then you just throw the money in because it's expensive, to be honest. You know you get a certain level of traction, you know you get a certain level of growth, climb the leaderboard and those kinds of stuff. But right now it doesn't work that way. I think it kind of like is we are in the space where it's pre-InfoFi and it's starting to force marketers to start to think about the growth channels that are very, very important. And something Ruti was saying very recently was when we taking on projects and taking on campaign, we need to start to think on how we can actually go to market without paid channels first.
Yeah.
That means you have to start prioritizing organic traction. Have to start prioritizing really, really interesting consumer journey experiences, and then having solid referral loops, and then also having a very, very strong retention system. Then these kinds of things takes time. However, you said something which was interesting, and you said that there is no one single distribution channel anymore and there's no one single playbook. I don't think there's ever been a single playbook because everything changes every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we look at distribution channels and you say there's no one distribution channels, so it means that we now have multiple distribution channels. What are some of those distribution channels that you think are pivotal right now in this space? Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same in the next 11 months because of the kind of industry we're working. But right now, like what are some of those distribution channels you think comes to mind?
I think if you remember Reach Network, right? Reach Network has been doing amazing work ever since before the advent of InfoFi as well. This taking work so far. So I feel something like a Reach Network or something like a Surgeons Creator Den, which we've been creating at Surgeons for the
That's
last,
huge as well.
at this point, because if your client comes to you and if they want instant distribution, we have access to 5,000 plus high quality vetted KOLs in the space who have proven that they can get to conversions, real conversions, not the kind which are just on the paper and they are not actually showing up on the protocol, right? So
Uh-huh.
having a like the number one mode for not even just marketing agencies, but for any say particular KOL as well, if they are able to curate their own band of loyal followers or a very strong community which will instantly try out anything you tell them to try out or which you recommend for them to try out. That's the kind of moat which I feel people should strive to build in today's day and age, because after this, even if a new sort of InfoFi comes or goes, any other meta comes or goes, this will always remain. Because I think the number one example, they focused on high quality partnerships from day one. They was thriving even
Uh-huh.
in the era of, they're thriving much more right now that InfoFi is gone. People need
Uh-huh.
something like uh, reach is great, but there's also a lot of potential for people to come up with their own versions of reach, right? For maybe say
Yeah.
DeFi or consumer crypto, because reach is focused on the over end of Web3, right? But you can easily build a reach which has a niche, for example, DeFi or as I mentioned, consumer crypto. So I
Or even DeFi can be niched down for the different aspect of DeFi. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But I would like to just maybe divert the attention from here a bit because I still feel that there's a lot of work to be done for Web3 as a space because if you think about it, the general public still does not understand what we do here. Still doesn't
Yeah.
understand the kind of tech. Yesterday
That's it. That's a big problem.
I was I was uh, I was in the lift at my apartment, okay, and I think one of
Yeah.
the people who were above mine entered the lift and he asked me, and I told him that I'm in crypto marketing and branding for projects, etc. He was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, but this Bitcoin scam that happened, so are you into all that?" Hey, there are only two things that people associate with crypto to this date in 2026. That is one is Bitcoin, second is crypto scams, and that
Yeah.
isn't even after we have protocols like like projects like Coinbase, even after we have like Arbitrum or
Mm-hmm.
Solana matter to anybody on this planet. Like the
Mm-hmm.
grassroots you want to potentially target as users, they still don't know that things like Coinbase, things like Solana, things like DeFi exist. They don't know that they can
Yeah.
DeFi protocols which can give them up to 20-25% APY. They are still using their
Yeah.
tested banking systems which give them,
Mm-hmm.
shit percent per year, which is terrible in this economy, right? Because inflation
Yeah. Yeah.
passed up any banking rates. So every time I sit down at my desk and if I have to craft a campaign, my number one priority is that how do I ensure that I am able to break this CT bubble and get this protocol out to normal people. For example, we have this client called Main Network, right? And we just successfully closed their
Yeah.
PTO. Now, Main Network's entire thesis is that you and I, people like you and I, we cannot just go and go outright and buy a Dubai apartment, right? They are tokenizing a apartment for people to earn
Mm-hmm.
yield from. It's basically real world assets, right? RWAs.
Yeah.
So I feel it's my responsibility to ensure that people who do not have access to better
Yeah. True.
how many campaign metrics you eat, no matter how much impressions you get on your tweet, no matter how many likes you get, it does not matter. All of that can be all. But is your product or protocol actually reaching the masses? Is it actually made? I feel it's high time that crypto as a space focuses on that because we have regulation in place. That the Crypto Act, the one which is being debated in the US right now, gets passed in the next few.
Yeah. The Genius Act.
Exactly. If we have regulation in place, if world powers like the EU are also considering their own crypto tokens to
Yeah.
be
They. I think they've even moved a bit further on that. They have the MiCA regulation or
MiCA,
whatever
yeah.
policy. Yeah. MiCA. Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it that most people still associate crypto with Bitcoin and scams? These are not the
Mm-hmm.
two. The world of crypto has expanded so far beyond it that most people don't
Yeah.
even buy Bitcoin because it's now become like digital gold. You're not going to invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. I think it's starting off with distribution first, right? I think as a space, we still have a long way to go.
yeah.
And it takes a lot of effort, to be honest, to be able to curate your own what's the word for it?
Distribution
Your
network.
own distribution channel, your distribution network. And
Yeah.
many times, and to add to what you say, I think the first level or the first layer of distribution starts from your community and how we
Mm.
structure the community you're building. At Surgeons, we have a very solid community building system, and then you see that community should have layers, right? And there should be the core, and then there should be the outer layer. Usually, from the core, you get to start having ambassadors, right? And this is for a case where some people are saying we don't have money to get these high paid creators or high paid channel systems in place. If you have a very good product, which should be the first thing, we shouldn't even be talking about. Now we are having this conversation disclaimer with the idea that you have a very good product. If you don't have a very good product, you might need to go and sort that out first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then define who the target audience is. Now those target audience now or cluster of them makes your community. And then if you build the community well, that community it can easily become the first layer of distribution, not just in terms of marketing, but in terms of usage. You see, many times, many protocols tend to overlook the importance of a private launch or a beta launch, right? It allows distribution to be possible. And like you were saying now is you can have these channels, something like the creators then at Surgeons, and you can have these channels, and these channels could literally be the mouthpiece that you need. And then all you need to now do is tie down the fundamentals, very solid brand buildings, very solid content strategy, really, really tight copywriting, quality of work, amongst others. And then also you be chipping the founder funnel into that. Shout out to Leon Mabud. Um,
Yeah.
again, which is another distribution channel. You see, all of these things are very solid. They all complement how far we want to distribute. And I tend to think about a distribution channel like your hand. The hand in itself can be the products. How the product gets out to other people simply are the fingers, and they are quite different platforms or channels to which you want to leverage in that kind of sense. And taking all of them very, very seriously allows you to have more reach. It's easy to have more reach with 5 fingers than with one, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is why it's very, very important. And when you now bring that back to the conversation, the point you made regarding what's the name, regulations and breaking the crypto bubble. Now, I think that is completely another interesting aspect of distribution, because Web3 product in Web3 sitting right in the center of the crypto bubble needs to understand that there are more potential target audience outside the spheres of CT. CT in this sense means crypto Twitter, right? There are more potential target audience on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok. There are potential target audience who have the same problems you are experiencing, but have no idea that there is a certain crypto products with a new mechanism that can solve the same problem. Like you made a very, very interesting point about the yield, for example, and APYs, right? Lots of people are already doing investments and whatnot, but they are not privy and they are not aware about what's possible with a simple DeFi product in that kind of sense. They probably never used Aave before, or even never used maybe
They might.
Morpho before, right? Yeah, yeah. And being able to at least set up a brand in a way that actually not just caters for the core, which is the people in the bubble, but also does enough content marketing and enough educational form of marketing to allow non-central crypto users to be able to actually utilize the product in a way is interesting. Now I'm starting to see more products. I think Aave recently came out with their mobile app version of it. And that really helps with accessibility in that kind of sense. Anybody can actually download the app and really pretty much use the product. And I think it makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. It also kind of brings me to um there was something that you mentioned regarding um distribution. We are still in the topic of distribution, by the way. So you mentioned that distribution will always be king on one of your
Yep.
tweets.
Yes, sir.
So when you first wrote that tweet, because I was reading through it and I was like, okay, this is interesting. So
Yeah.
when you first wrote that tweet, again, pretty much similar to what we just discussed, where you, because people tend to think distribution is the numbers on your followers or your likes or your retweets or your comments. Were you thinking about that, or you're thinking about scales, you're thinking about channels of marketing, or you're thinking about retention, or you're thinking about reach in general? I don't mean reach network, I mean reach general reach
Yeah.
impressions and whatnot. Or you were you thinking about something else entirely?
When I was talking about distribution is king.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about projects figuring out a way to ensure that they are able to market themselves to the people who will end up using them, right? I'm a DeFi protocol. If I try to market
Mm-hmm.
myself to some NFTs, that's not going to work for me. Especially if I'm a DeFi
Mm-hmm.
protocol, 15-20% APY yield. I feel that in this day and age, I should be targeting Web2 audience more. If you are able to get the point across to them that my protocol is able to save USD backed yield of say 15-20% per year, so Web2 people will go crazy over it and they will start using your protocol right away. You will get thousands in a single minute. And for that, you have to break out of the CT bubble. You cannot expect to market
Mm-hmm.
to the CT and expect them to, increase your TVL numbers. Those numbers can only be increased if you market to people who need you. If you go on Instagram, if you go on YouTube, if you go on LinkedIn, see the problem I feel that happens nowadays is that not nowadays, it has been happening from the like very get go, is that most crypto projects treat Web2 marketing as a second or third hand job. They just probably not probably they actually just copy paste whatever they are posting on their main X account and just slap it on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's never going to work. And if you think that you're going to able to like that you're going to create an audience and attract Web2 using just Web3 tools, it's not going to work at all. You have like for example, I remember Circle's LinkedIn page, right? Like this is Circle I'm talking about. That's a listed company. Even their LinkedIn was just like mostly, at least that was I think the case last year, where the posts were just the exact copy paste of what they were posting on X, which is fine because Circle does not need the distribution, right? They already have logged everything down. But for someone
Mm-hmm.
who's not for someone who's just starting out, if you're a DeFi protocol who wants to get their footing and get the TVL numbers up, you should be marketing yourself to people who will get the numbers up for you. And those are
Yeah.
that's Web2 audience because they need you more than the typical Web3 audience. Because if you think about a typical Web3 user, he knows that there are a lot of things like Aave, there are things like Uniswap, that there are things like say NFTs where he can just go do meme coin trading on Pump Fund to just make some money. But someone who's sitting in a Web2 job who probably say you're 100K per year as a salary account or he does not know that there are these things which he can do and he does not have the time to do these things. They probably are looking for a
Mm-hmm.
safe option which can help them increase their savings and get them good returns. And why
Mm-hmm.
are you not, I mean, this is such a, like it's right there in front of your face, right? But but most protocols still don't care about it. I feel that is a very big moat which can easily, if even one project understand this, for example, you mentioned Aave has their app now, right? Which you can just download and get your.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the right direction. I remember I had made this tweet earlier as well. Like if you look at this app, this is a like fixed derivatives app on in India. It's called Wind Wealth. What you can do here is
Really?
essentially if you yeah, so like if you just enter the app, it shows you the yield right
Yeah.
away. You just have to lock the amount which you want to pay, and that's it. You're done. You will be earning
Interesting.
11.5%. That's all. That's three taps. That's like by Face ID, I choose the I want to get, and I just begin my KYC, and I'm done. This is what we need for
Incredible.
crypto.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Need. I find that it like the risk creating is there. The amount of money that's already logged in the protocol, that's also put inside. So not the
Mm-hmm.
protocol. It's all
Yeah.
of it is there. If even one crypto DeFi protocol ends up doing this, it's a win-win for the space because everyone will want to get on the app and get the yield. It's so simple. I don't know why people don't.
Yeah, so I think it's quite funny because when you were talking, one of the things that came to my mind immediately was that for protocols to even get this far, we need to take very, very, very serious attention to copywriting to be able to break down these concepts to what we call newbies, or in this kind of sense, non-sophisticated users, users who do not need to understand that this protocol is built on an EVM stack or a optimism super chain. They don't need to know those whatever. They need right copy that explains the mechanisms and they read a very simple UX and UI, user experience and user interface that requires them to make the action in 2 or 3 steps. And I think that
Yeah,
is incredible. And I feel that yes, that makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense because many times projects trying to go to markets confuse the ideology that the product needs to be quite technical to use, right? Whereas it
yeah,
needs to be more simple.
yeah,
And if we are saying we're talking about distribution and we are talking about how to get products from point A to point B, when we get the product from point A to point B, a product needs to be used, right? So we need to demystify and simplify the entire idea how it's been built and then the messaging around it. And that means taking copywriting very serious. And I know in some of your tweets I read you kind of like pushed back on the idea of just blatantly repurposing content or blatantly repurposing the same winning campaigns across every client. Now I get the point, but it does bring me to a question that I thought about when I was reading your post online in the sense that a lot of teams, if you agree with me, they do confuse sometimes impressions, followers now with the most recent interest on chain data, which I'm very happy about because it's
yeah,
high time protocols take data seriously. Now they also put a lot of confusion around wallet counts or campaign participation, and they confuse all of these things with real product adoption, in my
Yeah.
opinion. In your experience, where does that confusion actually begin? Now, is it from the way founders and marketers build incentive structures into the ecosystem? Or is it from our current priorities as a space? Or is it because those kinds of metrics give really nice numbers and then it's easy to tweet about them? But and I know it's very possible for you to have a high number of wallet activities and very low real users, right? But why is that confusion there, and why is it very, very prevalent in this space? Why is it always happening that we kind of like prioritize these vanity metrics in that kind of sense?
I think the problem is twofold, right? One is that crypto as a space has always been very extraction focused, if I may say that.
True. You may say that.
People, if you think about it, most people who got into crypto because they wanted to either double their money or they heard that their friends had doubled and and that's how people got into crypto earlier. Now, of course, it's changing because they are coming here for value which it's adding to their lives as useful protocols come up. But that mindset of extraction, I feel that has been ingrained into the system of every person who's in crypto, whether they like it or not. They are here to make a quick buck. And that mindset has to change for us to start defining these systems in a different way, for us to ensure that we build systems for income and not for extraction. And there has been like if you think about it, there have been so many projects who seemed so good from the get go, and we thought that the founders were great. That once they were able to next their money, they all just left the space. They
They
made a
done the
quick buck.
talking.
Exactly what to do. So if we set it for people to follow, it'll be very difficult for us to break out of this cycle of extraction and then promotion, extraction, not end. And second, of course, is that as humans, we all find the big numbers and big things flashy. If I tell you today that this protocol has 2 billion TVL, you will be
Hmm.
fascinated by it. You, as a person, will of course go and check how exactly did those TVL emissions come from. Are those from emissions? Are those from actual usage? But
Mm-hmm.
most people, they see it today on Twitter, which says that okay, this particular protocol did 4 billion TVL. They'll be like, oh my god, that's so cool, and this probably it's a good
Yeah.
project. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that the extraction mentality coupled with the with our problem as humans to like go and want those flashy numbers and start using those flashy numbers to fool the public. That's the problem. And if we want to change that, first of all, the mindset has to change that we need to build systems for the long term. And secondly, we need to create better systems by which we evaluate these protocols and projects. If we stop caring about the TVL numbers and if we start caring about the retention ratios, how many users are you actually retaining over a 1 or 2 year time span? How much returns are you actually generating for them? How is your protocol improving the space? If we start shifting the focus of the entire space towards these metrics and towards questions, that's where the change will come from. And this cannot happen from one protocol or one surgeons or say one reach network. It has to happen from all of the surgeons of the space, from all of the DeFi projects of the space. We all have to come together and understand that what we've been doing for so long, it was great. It got us to this point. But if we want to actually,
Make this next step. Yeah.
and if we want to, become the PayPal or become Googles of the world, we cannot keep doing this. That is
Mm.
exactly why, right? Because people just kept thinking that the bubble's going to keep going, growing, growing, and that this is the next big thing,
Yeah.
like Google and Apple's, right? For that, so I don't want that to happen for crypto. I want us to have a dot-com crash and then for good protocols to emerge. I would like to think that we are capable enough and mature enough as a space that before that crash happens, we are able to rein ourselves and control our extraction mentality and fix what's wrong so that it does good for everyone instead of us having to go through that no, like, period of crypto winter to get back to a good place. I hope that happens. I genuinely hope that.
Awesome. Awesome. I think I'll add to what you said, because what you've just said is very, very true first, sad,
Yeah,
true at the same time. And I think that when you look at it in itself, not that reason why protocols confuse all of these things for adoption is because they don't know how to look at data.
yeah,
So I think that's true, because you sit across a client and you're having a conversation and you see the emphasis of what they're asking for when it comes to data, when it comes to numbers and those kinds of stuff. I mean, we work in surgeons. We've worked with many clients. Some people don't know how many. It's a lot
A
on an
lot.
average. Yeah. And then there are very, very few clients who really, really now we at surgeons we are lucky to have really exciting clients. But when you have conversations with other people or other marketers out there, you know that there are very, very few clients, hence very, very few companies that are very particular about stuffs like real active users, not just wallet counts. Okay, how many of those wallets are depositing every day?
How many of them are actually doing on your protocol? How many of them are
Yeah,
actually locking up tokens for
y-
you to
uh,
use?
yeah. How many of them have staked? Now, the primary action of your, let's say, is a DEX. You're building a DEX, so it means your primary action means when you look at the data, the primary event is swaps, right? How many of hands wallets are swapping every day? How many of them come back? So let's say you said we have 10 million new users this month. How many came back next month? Right? How
Yes,
many
sir.
came back to swap next month? How much was swapped next month on an average for each user? Was the percentile differentiation between that? You see, when protocols calm down and start looking at these numbers, I think it kills the excitement immediately. Because when you look at the numbers and you are asking really, really strong hypothetical questions, you start to see reality very, 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 very early. And then it might as well save us from the .com .com crash you talked about because protocols will start to see what's really happening just because they pay keen attention into looking at okay what's the hypothesis around that. Okay, we have 10 million users. How many of these users came from our competitors? Right, that kind of gives you interesting. We lost 40,000.
And how much? Because it's very flashy campaign and spend a shit ton of money on it and acquire those users for maybe say 1 or 2 months. But once the money stops flowing towards them, if they stop using your protocol, it means that was just like money fueled usage. It was because you were spending that
Exactly.
money coming on. And if the once that tap stops, the users stop coming to your protocol, and that's a net loss for you because you just spend
Yeah,
I don't know on users on acquiring users, but that never worked. That
exactly.
cannot keep.
Very, very true. Very, very
Yeah,
true. Because if you ask the right questions when building hypotheses for campaigns, I don't think your attention will be on vanity metrics. Now, let's say in this kind of case where the money has stopped flowing, there's no longer incentive. Let's say it's InfoFi period and the InfoFi campaign has ended um, and you're losing over 40% of your users. Now that's sad. However, you can look at the data. Okay, we lost over 40%. Where did they go to? Because these users were using your products. They stop using your product. They have to continue utilizing the space. Are they using your competitors? Did they remain on the blockchain you are on? You start asking questions. Think for one, you start to understand that okay, we are not as big as we thought we were in the first place. This entire hype
yeah.
is not necessary, and then maybe we don't need to spend 300,000 US dollars on an InfoFi campaign. That kind of sense, right?
But I think the problem you that uh, in Web3 we want fast growth, right? That in 2 months we want to go to 500K followers and we want 2 billion or 5 billion TVL. And for us to achieve that fast growth, we end up uh, losing the what we actually were trying to do in the first place. We lose focus of our core mission
Mm-hmm.
that is to build. We have to start making slow building and linear growth sexy. We need to make people understand
Oh my days, very very true.
it's okay for a chart to look like this because if it's going to look like this, it's probably going to be more long lasting. And if it looks like this,
Yeah,
it's probably
it's
you
gonna
need
come
to
down. Yeah, yeah,
if you have to spend 2 years building, it's all right, but build something sustain. You look at Monad, right? For example, Monad spent
yeah,
2 to 3 building. People were flooding it like crazy. They were like this, that, blah, blah. And after that, they launched, and they're still going, and they're still. I know that they had a steep drop in their price as well, but I'm sure they're going to come back because Monad is a team
yeah,
I respect, and they are amazing at what they are doing.
yeah,
We
yeah,
waiting for 4 years, it's fine. Nobody cares
yeah.
that
Really.
you like 5 months or 6 months. If it's something which you are going to use, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean that's so true. I mean, it's okay for the chat to be like this.
Yes, sir. It has. Like,
yeah, it is okay. And protocols needs and teams need to understand this. And I think sometimes the pressure might be so much on the marketer. The marketer is he has some impossible KPIs, right? And he
yeah,
or she's gonna be thinking about what can we do to get this number up, right? And that brings me to the next question. Yeah. Let's say you're sitting down in front of a founder, for example, and they're working on a product. Let's say they're 9 months into it or 1 year into it. They have a small budget. They have, can we say, zero distribution? Let's say zero distribution. The product hasn't even been private tested yet. They have no community. I'm still just in dev mode, right? Now, in your experience, since we're talking about distribution, we're talking about growth in Web3, we're talking about community building as well, or community scaling, community for the purpose of distribution now. In your experience, what is what is the first thing you start to look at? Even before you launch a campaign, or even before you set up your Notion systems, or before
yeah.
you start to do your research and come up with the first line of copy in that kind of sense. Like, what are the first things you look at?
I think if it's a product which is still in testing phase, right, or if it's not even tested yet, if I'm a marketer, I would tell them that, listen, you need to ensure you have a golden opportunity here. You have the chance of a lifetime community which is going to keep supporting you till the very, if you want them to, or you can just, shower rewards in them for say that 5, 6 months, and then they're going
Yeah.
to be. So my recommendation for them would be to roll out the product to a private group of testers and keep
Mm-hmm.
expanding that group. Discord, do it on Telegram, that's totally up to you. I don't care. As long as you build that loyal and to ensure that that loyal community gets rewarded for the contributions they are putting. It doesn't matter if they are chatting on Telegram or that. If you are able to figure out a way to record the contribution, they will just a very nice fix to your product or to execute
Mm-hmm.
that you ensure that that person gets rewarded. It's those things like if you think about it, it's all right if you start with say 500 users, but those 500 you must ensure that if they keep supporting you, then they are the because if you think about it right now, the airdrop mechanics, they're broken, right? Most of the airdrop mechanics, I think there was this one protocol, I don't remember the name right now, sorry, but they launched a new metric where they were analyzing the time which people spent holding the previous airdrops. And then according to that, coming up with a score, and those people would accordingly get rewarded for the next airdrops later on. This would ensure that you are able to measure whether that person held the airdrop because they believed in the product or whether they just dumped it the second they got it. If you dump and dump and dump every time, your score is going to keep dropping. So you will now be
Mm.
incentivized to put the protocol you have been backing for a long time because you know that if you keep up this history of dumping, your score is not going to reflect well for the next project you're going to support, and you won't be getting the airdrop anyway later on. I think
That's
this is a
why that's why unique.
Exactly. I think we need to come up with systems like these. Of course, it's not perfect, right? Because what if you put the tokens into cold storage? What if you dump for a particular reason? That's so there are of course edge cases there which you have to solve
Yeah.
for, but in the right direction where we are able to understand that the mechanics we've been using so far are broken. Acknowledgement from the space that we need to fix it, and we are doing something to fix it. And this particular, I'll send the protocol page to you as well. They've made this open source. So any project out there can copy their code and can build their own holder score or can use the same score if they want to. I think
That's
this
quite
is
interesting. Yeah, you should send it to me.
yeah, and I think this is very this is a net positive for the space as well. Where when you see protocols collaborating and helping each other grow and ensuring that we tamp down on this extraction mechanics as we've been promoting for a long time. It's always very heartwarming to see. You don't see it often, but when you see it, it makes you in the space again.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, to be honest, because sorry, the system where you score based on previous airdrop histories, and you give a score and it affects you in the next one. It's kind of like it's also retroactive. It's retroactive based on your actions on chain and time of hold, that kind of sense. And like you said, there's definitely hedge cases. But the first thing that you mentioned on that kind of case study where the protocol has very small budget, zero distribution, no community, is actually start with the community of early testers,
Yeah.
early users. It almost never fails, to be honest. Because, and think about it, guys. This is the reason why I think Rishab is saying it. You start, let's say you have 500 is even a lot. I think if you have 500 early users, you're a big boy. In the case where You have
Yeah.
very small budgets and zero distribution. 500 early users is quite a lot in that kind of sense. So when you think about it, so let's say you have 25, right? Now, those 25 early users, they will give you feedback. They use the products and give you feedback on how the product looks like, how they're using it in their daily life, the challenges they're facing. You take the feedback. That feedback is very key for, product development. You improve the product and then you also improve the user experience of it. Now, the very, very interesting thing is, as it is a rule of thumb in surgeons, set up referral systems, right?
You
Now,
incentivize
those,
those people to refer
yeah,
these to other people. And you keep doing that loop every time a new set comes in. You
a new
set up
set
tiers.
comes in. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. You
Yeah.
start to build that early stage of users. Now the focus is not is not hype now. You're not trying to get numbers. You might put a tweet and have 5 likes at the same time. It's perfectly normal
It's
and
fun.
it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
okay.
And then you incentivize those referral loops and a new set comes in and it keeps going on back and forth like that. And these are the early stage users. And then you notice that over time from, let's say, 5 it goes to 25. And the reason why referrals are very key is because, let's say I have a product around prediction markets in surgeons, and I
Yeah.
look into surgeons. Who is the first person I'm going to want to refer? It's going to be Rishab, because I and Rishab talk a lot about product development, prediction markets, and
Yeah.
everything. If it's if it's, even if it's AI systems, we could be talking about AI systems. So most likely, I'm going to refer somebody that I know would likely have an interest in this thing. And what founders may not understand or marketers may not understand is, back in the day when you do Facebook ads, Facebook ads, you can set up lookalike audiences. A proper referral structure is another lookalike audience, but very organic. Yes, and it's much more organic than a typical Facebook lookalike audience. However, if it's done well, it can actually give you the same result, because people will most likely refer other people who will likely use the product. And then you can start to grow the community that way. Now, when you grow the community that way, these people will become your own organic distribution channel, like Rishab was talking about. You can now breed your own creators then in your own protocol in that kind of sense. So in that and it becomes really interesting. Now, and that thing that you might want to now do based on what he said is retentions. Now, in Web3, people trying to think about retention as the fact that people come back to use the product. But the question usually is why? Why should I come back to use the product? Well, it's because I had a good experience using it. Even if it doesn't mean that there was no bugs, really. There can be bug, but how you handle feedback from me matters way more than the bug itself.
Yeah.
And that's why protocols and not protocols now, companies spend a lot of money on customer services, right? Taking these feedbacks and then acknowledging the feedback and then thanking the feedback. Sometimes I've seen protocols that even reward feedbacks, like really constructive feedbacks in that kind of sense. And then you now see your feedback being implemented. That's a win. That's a huge, huge win. It makes you feel part of what is being done. You see? And that is why retention is key, because now that person is confident. That person is, they have they start to have the ownership mentality, right? That we are part of this, we are doing this together. Why? Because you simply build a proper feedback loop. The feedback loop is in itself a retention system, right? And then on the feedback loop, how you disseminate communication, it might be through Discord, like you said, or Twitter. We don't really care. Whatever works for you, to be honest. But like he's saying, like Rishab is saying, these things actually play a whole lot of role, and you can you can move from being the protocol with zero budget to doing really well. And like Rishab explained, the chat goes up like this.
Yes, sir. And if I may add, I think we as a space need to understand that the users who use our protocols, they're not data point numbers. They are actual
Yeah,
human beings.
and human beings.
If you find a cool product today, are you not going to share that with your family members or your
I will.
relevant friends who are British? Exactly. And if you are able to, say, for example, I'll share this. I had this one interaction with an Amazon customer service rep, okay, I think 3 to 4 years ago. When I had this problem with a product, I called the guy up. They were so helpful. Like they were like, okay, sir, I understand your problem. I'll make sure that, I take care. As opposed to there's one more platform in India called Flipkart. Their customer service was so bad to me. I told both the examples to my family members and told them that don't use Flipkart, use Amazon. Why? Because my experience. was bad in case one, but the amazing. So if I as a human being am interacting with your protocol, or say for example one of your mods, and if the mods in your community is like super amazing and they are able to respond to me in a timely manner and they understand what I'm trying to say and they give me good and they teach in a constructive way, implement it as well. I will be incentivized to go on X and say that, bro, look at Protocol X. They were so good to me and they were able to, they
Yeah,
implemented.
really. It's that simple.
And it's only a matter of time before you start attracting the attention of people who have a large audience. And then those people start talking about you with their community. That's how it's like a snowball. It keeps increasing in size as it rolls down the hill. If you make sure that it is healthy, if it's in a good momentum, it's going to keep working in your favor. But you need to ensure that as you grow in size, you do not forget the basics. You need to understand that every single user who enters your Discord, who enters a Telegram, is important, and they should be treated as well. If you start treating them like shit later on, if you feel that, okay, I'm too big to fail, and it's all right, I have 100K users. If two of them don't like it, it's all right. I don't care. Those two might probably bring your downfall 2 months later.
That's quite insightful. I mean, I think anybody found a market or whatever, I think when you just listen to what we just talked about, it should give you ideas. It should give you ideas on how to really build that stack and actually how to grow your own. When I mean owned, I mean OWNED, your own distribution channel.
Yes, sir. That's the
And
mood.
yeah, and to be honest, without even shilling, one of the beautiful ways to actually do it, sometimes it can be very confusing, and this is not even shilling, trust me. Work with agencies, work with people who really know what they're doing. And it will allow you to move from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. And then you still get the same output, that owned channel. People feel when you work with, let's say, marketing agencies like surgeons, um, the surgeons is going to give you their own distribution channel. No, it doesn't work like that. The idea is to actually build your own distribution channel. When you set up the community, have a working product. I don't think it's going to be surgeons community. It's going to be your protocols community, right? It's going to be for your protocol. The product is for your protocol. The X account is for your protocol. Let's say stronger founder accounts is for your protocol. If I told you, let's say you have a newsletter, for example, your protocol, the SEO activities, your protocol. Nothing is for the agency in that kind of sense. And then the entire goal is to actually get to the point where you have owned distribution channels. It is the creme de la creme, the point you should strive for as a product. Which pretty much brings me to one of the questions I was going to ask. Like, there's a lot of questions I want to ask, but I'm just going to start with this first. Let's say you should walk me through something now where there's a product launch at Sudden's a client. Again, there's zero traction, which is usually most of the time the case, if you agree with me. It's a new product, maybe it launched before, they're about to relaunch again. Let's say they have some traction, right? When you look at distribution plan and you look at growth in that kind of sense, two different conversations. What is usually in the case where the product has launched before? What is usually the number one metric that now you have launched, campaign is going on well? What is that one metric you're going to be looking at every week to ensure that the numbers are going really well, regardless of what's happening on X, regardless of if the protocol is on trending or not? Or let's say the tweet impression got to about 700K, regardless of that, what is the one metric you're going to look at? Yeah, the launch is going on well. Everybody's saying good job, really solid copy, solid graphics, or solid video, everything, everybody cooked on a product. But as marketer looking at the back end of the activity because you have all the data, what is that one metric you're looking at and you're like, oh my days, like this is going on well, or this is maybe falling short?
I think it's not just one single metric. It's a trifecta of metrics which I would look at, and it's from product to product, right? But if you remember, we were working on Duffel earlier, Optimus, and I mean, Lux is one of the best I've worked on so far. The three metrics we kept checking was firstly on-chain transaction volume, secondly user growth week per week, and third was to see how many active members the Discord and Telegram was having. Why? If the number of users are going up week by week with your on-chain volume, it means that the new users are keep there is a loop in place where
Yeah.
users keep coming in and they keep doing transactions on your protocol, and that's the numbers are going up. If this would have been the case where the numbers would have been stagnant or they would have been trending down in terms of users, but the on-chain volume would have been growing, that would have been worrying for me because it would be a clear sign of manipulation. That clearly two or three big. But in the case of Duffel, we saw that the transaction volumes were also going up, users were also going up. And third was community. And that's purely because I want to ensure that the product or the protocol survives long term. If the people who are using, say, for example, a wallet, right? If they're using it and they are doing transactions there, I want them to be on my Discord. I don't want them to be on my Telegram, because I'm sure at some point they will want some or the other feature. At some point they will end up hitting some or the other snag. And when they do that, I want and tell me that this is the problem. If the are able to share their feedback, over time it's not going to work out. It genuinely won't, because if you keep driving on a road and it's a dark road, you will end up having an accident, right? But if there
Yeah,
are
true.
lights on and if it's a well lit road, you will be in the right direction. I think of users as lights. They keep lighting the path forward, and us as drivers are going to keep driving the car and the product forward. I
Yeah.
think that these three.
Awesome. I think I completely agree with you. Especially the Duffel case study, because like he said, we worked on Duffel together. It was quite
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
And I think for the most part, we spent so much, even outside of this metric, we spent a lot of effort on the product build. We spent a lot of effort on the acquisition experience. How did they come into the product? What is the first action? What do they do next? That kind of thing. And then the idea of it is the fact that, in my opinion, very similar to his, there's no one metric to look at
Yes, sir.
because the protocols are different and the edge cases of the protocols are very, very different.
Yeah.
And usually, I think it always plays on, let's say we're talking about the templates, I would say first look at an on-chain data that is a North Star. Then look at the protocol call action. If you are a DEX and you can do bridging and you can do perps all in the same, regardless of what you can do all in the same, you would have one call action. The cash cow in that kind of sense. Let's say it's a DEX, for example. Your DEX session is one that brings in the most users. You cannot possibly be thinking about bridge actions. It is the swaps and the volume of swaps, frequency of swaps. You understand? Where are they swapping from? Where are they swapping to? What coins are they swapping or tokens are they swapping? You understand? And when are they swapping?
Just like they
Yes,
follow the money for the.
yes, exactly. And you start to understand that because these edge cases are different, you need one metric on chain, you need one metric on the product, and you need one metric on the community. I think, I think when you can tick these three boxes, I think it works, and it's pretty much what we did with Duffel. And it
Yes.
does help. It does help. It helps to an extent to give you a complete overview on what's happening. Right. And people don't know when it comes to data and you have a properly set up data system, you can see actions on the product, not even on chain. It is possible that you are seeing on chain massive amount of wallet actions, and on the product data, you are seeing majority of the actions that people are doing on the major places people are going to is the bridge. So we are seeing lots of high user activity on bridge section, lots of volume on swaps. So automatically that means that the people who are swapping are not the total number of people that are using the products. Majority of people that are using the products are on the bridge section, but they're not giving the same amount of volume. And that tells a completely different story on what you do next, to be honest. But you don't get to understand this kind of edge cases in this kind of sense if you don't look at the measurement week by week in relation to the product you're marketing or the product you're trying to actually help with go to market. And I think Duffel is a very, very interesting case study. Every time, every time. Yeah, yeah. It does bring me to one of the major conversations internally and externally in the space. Open Claw and Cloud Co-work.
Yeah.
Not how to set it up. This is not a conversation on how to set it up because I mean I think that's just a completely different conversation. However, in relation to building strong distribution growth systems. I know you've been experimenting with AI agents. I know firsthand. I have not, trust me, I have though, but the focus is on you. And I know you've been experimenting a whole lot on AI agents like OpenClaw, for example, in your marketing workflows. What's that one thing that you know AI has already changed about how you run campaigns for not just yourself, but for clients? When I say run campaigns, I don't mean it's going to run the entire campaign. You can't do that. But I mean key
Mm.
actions that you utilize the AI agent for a particular output. What is um that one, two, three, four, five things that it has really helped with, and the other things that it is very terrible at because people don't like to talk about that part. it can be terrible at something. What are those things in your experience? I mean, because I know in the past 4 weeks it has been intense internally. Yeah. So
Yeah. I think for that, first I would like to say that there's a perception right now for everyone who thinks of OpenClaw that it can change your life, it can do everything that you want it to do. Spoiler alert, even if it were to do it, you need to be very clear about what you want to do, and you need to be much more clear about setting up the systems in place and explaining it to it what you want it to do. I was
Mhm.
talking to and he told me that we live in a time and age where being a dev is not necessary, but being a good communicator is extremely important. If you are going to build a product and if you think that you will use Codex 5.3 for it, and if you sit down and chat today to make it, if you don't understand what you want to build, the GPT will build that for you. You need to be very, very clear and very detailed on what you want. And unless you're able to not be able to build what you want. So I think that's an important tip for anyone who's trying to experiment OpenClaw. Now, when it comes to using it for campaigns and etc., I feel it's the number one use case which we've been experimenting with is outreach. Earlier, it used to be a manual job for us to DM hundreds of creators using it or hundreds of new leads creating it. Now, it's just a matter of minutes for us because we set up the outreach, we set up the limits that okay, don't DM more than 10 people every 30 minutes or every 1 hour because we don't want our accounts to be banned. And it does that overnight. That sort of automated outreach is extremely important because if the conversion rate from that kind of outreach is say 5 or 10%, that means that you are converting 5 to 10% users every outreach cycle. And if you run these outreach cycles every damn day, you are converting 5 to 10% users every damn day, which is a very good number for any
yeah,
project.
yeah,
Outreach is an important use case for OpenClaw. The second would be it's very good at giving you an overall narrative or direction of what an campaign should look like. And it is also good at giving you a base copy, which is probably 80% there. And if you work on it yourself, and trust me, you need to work on it yourself. If you are thinking of just slap the copy it's giving on your X, don't expect it to work, honestly.
oh my God.
Just copies which are 80 90% there. And if you put in the effort, say 10 more percent of the effort, you'll get the copy and you'll get everything for your campaign, right? Now, if you want to talk about what it's not doing well currently, I don't think I'm the right person to answer this because I have not uh, probably been using it that much that I've hit a point where it's not doing a particular job well. I think for me, the blocker right now is scraping X because using X API costs a lot of money. So I'm kind of trying to figure out a way to scrape X without having to go the X API route. But apart from that, whatever I've used it for so far, it response is not like it's been good to great. It's not been extremely good, it's not been very bad. It's just like it's getting the job done. And I feel as we keep advancing these technologies over time, it's going to keep getting better and better at it, right? So to be fair, it's not just for marketing, I feel it's for anyone in 2026. If you want to make sure that you don't get replaced, or if you want to build something using tools like Claude Cowork, OpenClaw, Codex 5.3, whatever you want to call it, like all of these tools, you need to be open to the possibility of understanding them and using them. You cannot say that, no, 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 I'm not a dev, I'm not a you don't have that option anymore. And
yeah,
to be fair,
sadly.
it's not that difficult to figure out if you sit down and try to figure. I am not someone who's from a tech background. I had my bachelor's in accounting and finance. I was able to set up my OpenClaw by watching YouTube videos and using Claude for whatever problems I was learning into. And if someone as dumb as me can do it, who's very technologically not challenged, but who does not have a prior dev experience, I can assure you anyone can do it if they would look in the right direction and they start if they have the will to do it, honestly. The will is the most important thing here.
Awesome. Now, spoiler alert. When you look at this, if you're watching this podcast, you see two different, very good, very, very, very good friends. I don't use OpenClaw that much because for me to set up OpenClaw, I need to get a new system, separate system from
Yeah.
my core system, which I've not done yet because of data, because I handle a lot of data, and I need to, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what I've had to now do was use Claude Cowork instead because with Claude Cowork, I can at least save the data on the local drive. So it means it's not ex, available for external access in that kind of sense. However, when you look at from my own experience and from what we shall be saying, there's no difference. The experience is good, but not that mind-boggling. And yesterday, one of the things that we put, one of the resources that we put out was how to put out steps on how for data analysts on how to learn Web3 data. And one of the things that I mentioned there was that the AI paradox. AI can actually do a lot for you, but if you don't understand the fundamentals, I'm not sure you will know how to query well. Now, Rishab is saying your query matters a lot. However, I feel the reason why you can query well is because you understand, you know exactly what you're looking for. You know what you are doing, you know the fundamentals of, you know the expected outcome. And sometimes you all you need to do is look at the outcome and you can tell the process is wrong because you are not dumb. You know exactly what you're looking for. If you don't know the fundamentals, let's say you are in marketing, you don't know the fundamentals of how a good copy should look like. When it writes the copy for you, you cannot tell whether it is bad or not. You see? So regardless of whether or not you need to learn AI now, or it has to be Claude Cowork or OpenClaw or GPT Codex 3.5 or Claude Code, anyone or first
Any
anyone, the fundamentals is key.
Yeah.
Right. You need the fundamentals. Like it's very, very key. It affects how you prompt. In fact, I think it also affects the clarity of how you prompt. And for me, I think that's the most important. Learning the fundamentals and using these tools as advantage to make the output and execution a bit faster. I think that's where it comes. And it does
and
play a lot of in marketing.
it has a lot of trial and error, right? You need to be willing to spend a few hours getting the wrong results because once you get the wrong what not to do, and then you'll do what you have to do. So
Perfect.
I feel that willing to experiment, put out some time. It's all right if you don't go out on a weekend. If it's all right if you don't go to party for a weekend, just sit down with the system, sit down with your subscription, whatever you're using.
Yeah.
Build a system right so that you're able to keep using it. And
Hmm.
if you're not willing to put in the efforts, you're not going to get to the point you want to get to.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And it
Yeah.
does bring me to the last question for this episode and this session, primarily speaking. In your own opinion, your mind, if you had to give one piece of advice to a Web3 marketer or a growth marketer who's currently grinding out results right now and grinding out campaigns right now, but not seeing as much results as, there's a way you run a campaign and you still look at it and you are disappointed. No. Now, if you were to give an advice, because I know we've run such campaigns multiple times sometimes. You take it in a chain and then you expect routing your DMs at the same time. And then you try to improve as much as possible. But if you had to give one advice to anyone who's in that kind of process right now, what would you tell them to stop doing immediately or start doing to be able to actually move forward in what you're trying to achieve?
I would like to answer this question with a line which I had read, I think, 4 or 5 years ago in college, where it said that a good artist copies, but a great artist steals. And if you think about it, 90 to 95% of marketing is just remarketing.
Exactly.
It's the
Swap
it's the
files.
same exactly, which was ages ago by people repackaging it in flashier ribbons and then sending it to the audience, right? So if you want to improve your marketing skills, if you want to understand how to run campaigns better, look at what people did before you. Go and open pages like Coinbase, the pages. There's one page called Rails Labs, right? They do amazing marketing. I love the marketer who does that. I don't know who he is, but he's an amazing marketer.
He or
Look at
she.
Rails he or she, exactly. He slash, just to be safe. Yeah, just so basically look at good pages who do great marketing, say Plasma Foundation, for example.
Hmm.
These pages have amazing content. They have amazing design references. They have amazing copy references. You create a, like, 4 to 5 different sections of bookmarks on your X account. You keep bookmarking these projects, spend time every day understanding what they did right, how did they do that, and why did they do that. And then think about how you can emulate that for your own project. And then at the same time, think about how you can probably think of an innovative idea based off of that idea. So if you keep doing this multiple times, you will be able to get to a point where even if your base idea is probably from one of these pages, the new idea will be a completely new concept, which will
Hmm.
be different and same at the same time. So and that's how I started, to be very fair. Like I had no idea about anything crypto, right? And my only playbook was I had this best friend Miguel who helped me understand a lot of it. And then you should start
Shout
looking
out to
at
Miguel.
Shout out to Miguel, exactly. Amazing guy. And thought, why don't you spend some time on crypto Twitter? If you are a marketer in crypto, you cannot not have 4 to 5 hours of screen time on X. You cannot not be religiously following these pages and understanding why at the what time. So I feel if you're a marketer starting out or if you're at any point in your journey, make it a point to study these pages every day because the only way you can improve is to study the work of the people who've been able to be successful at what they're doing and then emulate for yourself. That's like the number one way to get ahead in crypto marketing for sure. And of course, think and if you're someone who wasn't there in crypto, say back in 2022, 2021, sit down to understand the history of the space. Think about the NFT boom cycle. Think about why people are so emotionally attached to things like pudgies or bases. Why was that part of crypto and why is it not a big part of any? Both sides of the question. If you are able to understand these systems and these questions and how the history of the space has evolved, you will automatically start having an understanding of where the space is heading and you will automatically be able to market the protocols which come to you for marketing in an appropriate way. But the understanding and the study cannot be glossed over. You cannot expect to just start using Claude or ChatGPT for your copies and campaigns and then have amazing outputs. Right? Because if you think about also needs sound inputs. If you do not give it good references, because they cannot crawl X right now, and I'm sure that they will never be able to crawl X no matter what happens, right? If you are not if you feed it garbage, if you feed it very bad references and bad examples, you'll get garbage. But if you spend time curating a list of good content and good examples, and if you feed that to your models, they will automatically spit out at least on par or equally as good response, right? So you need to be willing to spend that time on studying and learning. If you're not willing to do that, it's not going to work out. Sorry.
I think, first of all, this does bring us to the end of this session today. And to really summarize what he said, create swap files. You almost never go wrong with it with swap files. So because swap files are those is a collection of ideas that you seen and like and you've seen work in the space that you can always reference to. And people think you need a special thing for swap file. You can simply create a bookmark folder on X.
Exactly.
That is a swap
Be
file.
old school.
And spend time studying. Yeah, spend time studying those things, right? You create a swap files. You want lots of graphic references. Create swap files on Pinterest.
Take screenshots
Create swap files on Instagram.
have to use a Telegram chat if you have to. It's all right what you do as long as it works for you.
Yeah, as long as it works for you. It is the strategic copying of previous works
Exactly.
that creates inspiration for the next, really.
Yeah.
Because no man is an island of knowledge. We don't need everybody's input to be able to actually make progress forward in what you're trying to do. So yeah, if you end up in that kind of space, this is pretty much how to be able to actually get your next campaign right and get better results. Just look at what's happening in the space. There are times when some of your campaigns needs to be spontaneous, right? You see what's happening in the space, you might as well just want to jump in, right? But anyways, this has been a very very exciting conversation, Rishab.
Right, you go.
Such a like it's been a pleasure talking about just distributions and growth and community building. And I do think anybody who's going to listen to this to the end is going to learn a lot about how to start from zero to
I hope
one
so.
and go from one to 100. Yeah. And it's been such a pleasure. If you got something from this episode, do well to actually like, subscribe, share, read our newsletter at Blogs and Growths, where we break down what we just discussed. We break it down even further into metrics, articles, and plays and tools that you can actually use and leverage, and also share this with your friends. Anyways, it's been a pleasure.
Much
Thank you.
Optimus. Q.